Big darts fan.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've been watching with interest the scandal which has wreaked havoc on the sport over the last number of days. I read from The Guardian here. The world of professional darts has been rocked. That's rocked, Dave. I'm sure you've seen this story. By two players accusing each other of repeatedly breaking wind during a match. That's Gary Anderson of Scotland and the Dutchman Wesley Harms. They blamed each other for, quote, rotten farts during the clash in the Grand Slam of darts. So Anderson, twice world champion, of course, won the match 10-2, earned a place in the quarterfinals. But in a post-match interview, his beaten opponent Harms said that his own poor form, he wasn't at his best, Harms, his own poor form was due to Anderson breaking wind on stage and leaving, quote, a fragrant smell. He said, it'll take me 2 nights to lose this smell from my nose. Anderson heard this, was not impressed. He laid the blame at Harms's door. And then Harms came back again. If the boy Anderson thinks I've farted, he's 1010% wrong.
Very specific.
The next line's the best. I swear on my children's lives that it was not my fault. And he says, I had a bad stomach once on stage before, but I admitted it. So I'm not going to lie about farting on stage.
How many times in top-level sport have somebody's children's lives been sworn upon that somebody did not suffer a bout of flatulence?
Not often. So there's a certain logic there. He says he's admitted it before. It's not totally watertight, but anyway. Anderson, the world number 4.
Use that term.
The world number 4, he hit back, gave extraordinary details, says The Guardian. He blamed it on Harms. He said, no, it definitely came from tableside. And it was eggs, rotten eggs, but not from me. He said, every time I walked past, there was a waft of rotten eggs. So that's why I'm thinking it was him. It definitely wasn't me. And then Anderson went on to say that he has farted on stage before, but never used it as an advantage.
Imagine it was a tactic.
Well then...
it's like, oh no, my form isn't great here. I'm just going to eat a load of beans and have a raft of stout.
Well then PDC chairman Barry Hearn said he had never heard of deliberate farting during a match. But he said, I'm determined to get to the bottom of this.
How exactly?
BBC.
I wish it was
Something stinks about this story.
Oh dear. Fantastic stuff.
Now, I think...
Darts, everybody.
Look, you do whatever it takes to win.
That's true, they're competitors.
And if you are feeling a little peckish or a little bit ill, you want to be doing it just as you're leaving the oche, just as you've thrown your 3 darts, so that your opponent walks straight into it as he's preparing for his throw.
Yeah.
It's a particularly contentious Grand Slam because there were issues between Anderson and Gerwyn Price in the final as well, in terms of walking across the other's line of sight at the oche while the other was preparing to take their next 3 throws. So it's nice to see a bit of liveliness going into the world of darts.
It can get very touchy.
I was just going to say, there's lots of touchiness in darts.
Yeah, there's been a few relationships over the years that have provided an awful lot of entertainment. A lot of them have involved Phil Taylor.
I was just, because I was looking up the Gary Anderson interview after that semi-final the other night, and it's just looking up like random angry darts interviews. I'm not lying when I say about 8 out of 9 that came up were just Phil Taylor interviews, and all of them different, because he was a very angry
He's had a problem with a large degree of people over the years, but they do, particularly when the pressure's really on, like these guys are playing for their livelihoods. A lot of them are playing to stay inside the top 12 and retain their automatic seeding for some of these biggest tournaments, and there's an awful lot of money that they're playing for, and they do tend to lose their rag every so often, and they're very honest in their post-match interviews. Really honest, probably more so than you get in any other sport. There aren't many platitudes. If they're praising somebody, you can pretty much tell that it's genuine, although you have often watched Taylor praising his opponent over the years and you know that it's really not genuine.
Because I was just thinking as you said that, it was about a year ago when Phil Taylor went off and won. I think it was Darryl Gurney who didn't pour him a glass of water, poured himself a glass of water, and this was a big sign of disrespect, and Phil really went to town on him afterwards. It was big. It was a big scandal in the sport for about 24, 48 hours. Should he have poured the glass of water? What does it mean that he didn't? And
that's the kind of thing they miss now that the power's gone. And on a serious note, like for darts lovers out there, in particular lovers of the PDC, it's not a good situation to have Taylor and Barneveld stepping away so close in succession. Obviously, Taylor's last World Championship was the 2018 World Championship. Barney's last one is going to be the 2019 World Championship, and unless he comes back and plays in January 2020, I'm not sure, because I know next season is his last. But they were the 2 biggest personalities in the game outside of Van Gerwen, and they're both gone now.
No, it's this championship. It's going to be Barney's last.
This is his last.
This is his last one, 29-20.
So, you know, on a serious note, what Barry Hearn has built this empire on has been one of the best rivalries in sport. It's Van Barneveld and Taylor. They're both gone now. So.
And in their absence, what steps forward?
Well, Van Gerwen is a real character, and people love watching him play because he's so explosive, and he is incredibly honest in his interviews as well. Not afraid to throw a tirade or two if necessary. But outside of him, I mean, there aren't really big characters there anymore.
There's a lot of nice guys like some Mensah Suljovic, the likes of Rob Cross, who won the World Championship last year. Like, they're solid blokes, but there's not necessarily there's characters like Peter Rice, there's characters like Simon Whitlock, but beyond that, it's kind of nice to see Gerwyn Price throwing his weight around this week at the Grand Slam, because it adds a little bit of extra frisson going into the World Championships, because he's somebody who on his day can probably pull off one of the top ranking events. But
if you were to ask anybody in 6 months' time, name two of the highest profile players in the PDC, with Taylor and Van Barneveld gone, anything other than a casual or anything other than a serious darts fan, like a casual darts fan, will not be able to give you an answer.
Your casual viewer would struggle to tell you Rob Cross won last year.
So that's, I think, is just a little bit of a challenge that they have, because Taylor's carried the sport for so long. Van Barneveld right beside him on that. But it's an odd one that we've managed to spend the last 10 minutes talking about the PDC in November.
Good.
Is the new batch of dart player just players we haven't got to know yet, and over time they'll have huge profiles, or are they a different breed? Are they nicer young men?
I hope so, because Taylor's personality and everything else and his actual talent dominated the sport for so long. So he took up so much real estate in terms of how it was spoken about and who actually won the bloody things.
You'd know. Do you watch much? You're still watching a good bit?
Not as much as I would have done in years gone by.
Okay.
And mainly because Taylor's not there.
Darryl Gurney's a good character, actually.
Yeah.
And one of those people who's
if Darryl Gurney walks into any room outside of a darts related room,
Davy's wearing a shirt called
Super
Super Chin, and he has a massive chin, so you're going to notice him.
Like, Gurney he's just one of a number of guys, but he's not like the standout guy. Take Van Gerwen out of it, there isn't really anything else coming up behind them that's going to force you to go. Like, I would never go and watch the Premier League anymore because Taylor's not there and Van Barneveld is not there.
Right.
Like, Taylor is the Tiger Woods of darts. Like, all of the players nowadays, just like the top golfers now, they owe their living. The fact that you, like, a regular PGA Tour event is going to give you at least $1 million for the winner's check, like the Travellers Championship or something that anyone who doesn't watch golf regularly wouldn't have a clue about. That's all down to Tiger. And Taylor has done the exact same for darts, and these guys owe him their living right now. The winner of the 2019 World Championship is going to walk away with £350,000, which is an enormous amount of money, and that has trebled in the last 8 years. It's an astonishing amount. It's all down to him.
Right.
I don't know who the next Taylor is to try and keep that going, try and keep that gravy train going. But I guess Barry Hearn's come up with that challenge and met it before. He just has to do it again.
Has the younger generation started a health kick, like going to the gym and drinking protein and pretending that physicality is very important to them?
You'd look at Price and suggest, but beyond that, I don't think so.
Okay.
These guys are not in good shape.
Okay.
No, but they don't, they probably look after themselves a bit better in that.
But not the Jockey Wilson generation.
They're not of the Jockey Wilson generation. They would see getting enough sleep is vitally important.
Yeah.
They probably do eat a bit better than the darts players of old. They obviously don't booze on stage anymore as they would have done in the 80s and the early 90s. But are we going to see a Brooks Koepka, Rory McIlroy type darts player? Unless the guy just happens to be a gym monkey? Absolutely not.
Okay.